loud one. Welcome to your City Commission study session. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during the meeting. Meetings are televised every day on Channel 2 at 6 p.m. and midnight and available for viewing on YouTube. This is study session for Tuesday, December 6, 2022. First up is Leavenworth School District, USD 453, quarterly update. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity once again.
Good evening. Good to see you.
Yeah.
My briefing today will really truly be brief until Commissioner Wilson has a question, I understand. So, really, I have just some dates that I would like to share with the commission this evening. Those of you that have followed our theater program or any of our theatrical plays, we have one coming up. It's called the Christmas Carol, and it will be on the 9th and 10th at 6:30 p.m. at the high school, and then Sunday, the 11th at 3 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Again, that's the 9th and 10th at 6:30, and then Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. The JROTC is going to do a Christmas shoot. This is something that's new. If you want to shoot their air rifles in the rifle range, you're going to be able to shoot some Christmas ornaments, from my understanding. It is free, but they are accepting donations. But if you would like to support and go to see what the kids, how they shoot within the rifle range, that will be on December 9th, 10th, and 16th. So on Friday, December 9th, it'll be from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Saturday, December 10th, it'll be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Friday, December 16th, it'll be from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And so you'll be able to enter through the JROTC wing, which is on the west side of the high school. The winter sports calendars, I will pass those around. I'll give them to Miss Sarah, and all the extras can stay. But that's all of our winter sports events that began, from wrestling to swimming to basketball. So we're excited about that. And then one of the things that's probably one of my favorite events of the year, it's sponsored by the Education Foundation. They do Music on Main Street. Our a cappella choir will do some Christmas songs. It's free, and that is Wednesday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. And it's in the Main Street where you walk in the main doors of the high school. And so that's an absolute awesome event. And it's about a 25-minute little concert. It sounds super neat in Main Street. You wouldn't think it would, but that's how talented our kids are. They can take a non-acoustical space in our high school and make it sound like a concert. And then the last thing that I have is that many of you have heard or may have seen, the board and I are taking the district through the strategic planning process. And so we'll have made it through all of the buildings tomorrow. We'll finish up with all the buildings that we've talked with certified staff. The board has went through it. The Education Foundation went through it today. We'll take the classified staff, and then we'll start hitting community events and send it out on a community link. So if you see that, please, please, please take the time to fill that out. It'll take you about 15 minutes to go through the first step of this, but it really will give us kind of a pulse of where the community feels that we are as a district and where we need to go as a district. And so that is my brief briefing. And so
you.
I know Commissioner Wilson had a question.
Yeah, so I received several emails and phone calls from parents inquiring about what are the schools doing to address bullying that's taking place inside of the schools.
So we have character program, then we have a character strong curriculum. All of that is we have from our elementary grades all the way through that we really try to promote and teach good citizenship. And that also ties into our mental health initiative, where we have counselors and social workers in all of our buildings to help give avenues to students that feel like they're being bullied or have experienced bullying, that they can go to somebody besides an administrator. Teachers have been trying to be vigilant about that. This time of year seems a little worse than others because of just the Christmas and gifts and finances, and there's a lot of stresses in homes, and sometimes that bleeds over into the school system through a variety of actions. But through Character Strong and then our Character Ed programs, we really try to teach good citizenship, which ties into anti-bullying type things. You bet.
Yeah, can you tell us, I'm imagining that all the schools are gonna do it at the same time. One of the kids gonna, the students, one of the students gonna be out for the holiday vacation.
I believe, I don't have, December 20th, Tuesday, December 20th, students are out. And they come back, teachers come back, I believe, on that Tuesday, the 3rd, and students come back the 4th.
Thank you.
Great. No, I didn't have any questions. Thank you, Dr. Roth, and
You bet. I want to wish each of you the happiest of holidays. Thank you
too.
for the working relationship we have with that you have with the school, the police department, the fire department, everybody. So thank you and have a happy holiday.
thank you. You
You
too.
as well.
You too. Okay. Next up, dangerous structures review and assessment.
Madam Mayor, Commissioner, I'll turn this over to Julie Hurley and Bethany Falvey from the Planning and Community Development Department.
Yep, Bethany Falvey, our city planner, is gonna go through, our dangerous structures, and she'll kind of go through the process, but just a reminder, this is just kind of our first look at them.
To review,
Yep,
yeah.
just to see, and, this is just the start of the process, and so you'll be seeing us back a lot more with these, and I'll let Bethany take it over.
Hi. Over the course of the year, our code enforcement staff has been compiling a list of potential properties during their normal patrol that meet the criteria as outlined in Chapter 10, Article 11, the unsafe or dangerous structures of our Code of Ordinances. The structures are assessed to be in an unsafe and dangerous physical condition, abandoned, or have a blighting influence, pose a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of the city. For each potential property, occupancy is determined via water utilities. At this point, the property owners have not been notified. We have simply prepared the potential list. The first step for you as the city commission is to provide a consensus to move forward with the list of properties that we are providing at this meeting. If you have a consensus, staff will then complete title work, notify the property owners, send a remediation agreement, which gives the property owners the opportunity to make the needed repairs, and prepare a resolution that would come back to you to set the public hearing for the structures. At that meeting, you would simply be adopting the resolution that sets the public hearing. And I'll go through the 10 properties that we're presenting. 612 North 2nd Street, 710 South 7th Street, 817 North 16th Street, 701 Chestnut Street, 776 Miami Street is just the accessory structure, 1030 Miami Street, 212 Olive Street, 200 Osage Street is again just an accessory structure, 229 Osage, and 1128 Quincy Street. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Did any of those, well, that one looked like it, but had any kind of fire damage or anything?
I think a couple of
Of
them
them, that
had
one,
fire.
229 Osage looked like it
Yeah.
might have.
And so when we're looking at these, when the code enforcement officers are looking at these throughout the year and we put our list together, we're absolutely taking note of whether or not property owners have been working on them. So we're not just pulling ones where there was a fire 2 weeks ago.
Right.
These are properties that have been in a continual state of disrepair with no movement on them.
For quite some time.
Yep, and again, all of these are vacant, like Bethany said, we check that through water service. We find that to be the most reliable way. If there's no water service, they should not be occupied.
Right.
So
Julie, when would letters go out to property owners?
letters would be going out here pretty quickly within the next week or two. We we like to have as much time to work with the property owners as we can. So we would be back in, I think we said January to set the resolution, setting the public hearing. And then I think it would be March or April before we'd be back with the public hearing. There's, certain legal notices we have to send out in different timeframes, between notifications and, all of that. So it is a several month process just to get them back to you, once we decide to move forward with this list.
I bring that up, the date that we mailed the letters will come up a lot over the next 6 months as we move past this, as property owners come to us and,
Yeah.
ask for more time. I just ask you to keep in mind that the neighbors are living next to these properties and the neighborhoods are suffering from these properties. So as we send those notifications out in December, and we
Yes.
get into March and April.
Right.
And these are also
There'll be a
properties
lot
that
of
have had
notification.
multiple code violations on them.
Right.
So this is not gonna be the first time that property owners have heard from the city that there's an issue with their property. We do make sure that, we're only selecting properties that, we've had contact with before, or at least, written up so that they've been made aware that there's violations that have just not been taken care of.
And properties, again, that are vacant. We do not do this
Correct.
process with any occupied structures.
Right, any occupied structures, I know there's some around that may look pretty bad. If they're occupied, we just pursue those through standard code enforcement procedures and not the demolition.
So how long have these, or maybe they're all different, been pursuing? Because, they had code violations and all that, and then eventually there's a point to okay, well, there's no one living in them, so then when do you find a time where you actually,
It varies
Just-
for each one. We don't
Yeah.
have a specific, time frame. Again, the code enforcement officers are familiar with their areas. They're keeping an eye on different properties. And just kind of as they get to that point of, okay, now it's beyond, we've gotten a response through code enforcement action, through court action. A lot of times with these vacant properties, when we do write them up and take them to municipal court, we get property owners that are not showing up, for whatever reason. Either they're out of town, they're just not paying attention, they're deceased, and, it's in a trust, whatever.
right?
And so we just, again, it just varies from property to property, how long they've been
Right.
getting to this.
Okay.
And as part of the notification process, we notified the property owners around 200 feet around each property, so the neighbors will be notified as well.
Yep, and that's something we started last year at the suggestion of the commission. The hope was that we would get, some participation from neighbors, because these are a blighting influence on neighborhoods. And so, hopefully getting some neighbors, that can come to the public hearing and give their input on properties.
Might have some
I
information.
know it's, helpful for staff and commissioners to hear from the neighbors that have to live with us.
Do you send those letters out to them, return a receipt requested so that, you can prove, hey, look, don't tell me you didn't get the letter here. We got a thing saying you did.
It's sent certified mail.
Yeah,
When we
certified, so they
notify
have to
the
sign.
demolition properties, they're sent certified mail.
Okay, a couple of them look like they're beyond remediation. That's it, they're done. 1030 Miami and 212 Olive Street. They don't look like you're gonna be able to do any kind of a remediation agreement. Because they look like there's no remediation they can do.
So every property owner is given the opportunity, and that'll just be, when it gets to the point of
Yeah.
the public hearing, a lot of times we find that property owners haven't done anything, especially on those properties that are at that point. But they're
Yeah,
all
but
given the opportunity to.
Just occurred to me that for those, remediation is knock down the house, put up a new one. That's about it.
And what's the average cost to demolish a property?
It depends on, the size, there's a lot of factors,
What they're made of.
what they're made of, how old they are, if they're fire structures, the debris has to be disposed of in a different way, so there's a lot that goes into it. For accessory structures, like a garage or a shed, I would say maybe around $8,000 when all is said and done.
As an
And
estimate,
that's gonna
yeah.
include, title work, cutting off utilities, all of that, not just taking it down. For a 2-story house, it could be 40,000 or more, just depending.
Right.
And as a reminder, the funding streams for demolition, the primary funding stream is through CDBG funds or federal funds that allow for blight elimination as a use, so those are not general fund dollars. And then for anything that's remaining, the city has allocated, I think, $30,000 in our annual budget, if needed, to take down any other structures.
Sure.
Okay.
This one on Chestnut Street looks like the main part of the building is brick. Do you happen to know that? 'Cause when I first looked at it, it looked like it was brick, and I was thinking,
It
that,
does, it's
Yeah, it looks
painted
like
brick.
it's, yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like it's brick.
yeah, that looks like, that's, if it's brick, that's gonna cost an arm and a leg to destroy if we have to.
Yeah, and so when we get to the point of having gone through the public hearing, and the commission has voted which structures to move forward with on demolition, we send out a bid packet to demolition contractors, and they have the opportunity to bid, and they'll at that time go around and take a look at each property, and, figure out their cost, what it would take. And I honestly don't know, the different factors that go into that for them, but the contractors, they, at that point, have the opportunity to take a look at each of them and give us their bid, and then we award that before we move forward.
And can I ask, how many more do you kind of have in the pipeline of properties on your radar? There's 10 right now. I'd imagine there's probably a few more than that out there.
So we looked at, before bringing this forward, I think 16 or so, and some of those we felt maybe more appropriate for the land bank, which we're moving forward with, or just more appropriate for moving, trying to work on a little bit more through code enforcement activities. So there's a constant stream of properties that are, in various states of disrepair, and so we really work hard to only bring forward the worst ones that, are really eligible for demolition.
'Cause
And
maybe
some
the
were
other ones-
occupied.
Yeah, that we ended up looking at and checking the water, and they had water service, and so some properties can look vacant, by all appearances, and even with the code enforcement officers, driving by, weekly, they can still look vacant, and then we start looking into it and they're not, and.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Anybody? Okay, no, thank you very much.
Consensus to move forward?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I forget the dates, but it'll be end of January or 1st of February that we're back with the resolution to set the public hearing. And then a couple months after that with the actual public hearing where you'll hear from the property owners.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is ARPA Housing Project Proposal.
Madam
Sister
Mayor and
Vicky
Commission, I'm
Perkins.
going to turn this over in just a second to Sister Vicky representing the Leavenworth Attainable Housing. I did want to remind the Commission, we did at the May Commission meeting study session, we did briefly touch on housing as a potential ARPA use. The language at that time was pursuing a housing project is mentioned several times in the ARPA final rule, as well in the guidance provided by GFOA. No current projects at that time would fit the city involvement, but could include something like land accumulation or site preparation with the bidding process or some thing that fits the city's overall housing goals. So although briefly, we have talked a little bit about housing with ARPA. So again, Sister Vicky and her group have been in contact with the commission and asked to come tonight to make a presentation. So I'll turn the floor over.
Thank you. Well, thank you for considering this evening. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. When I worked at the Community of Hope, if people came in for rent assistance or IDs or job searches, we could usually do something. But when they came in looking for housing, we really struggled. Because to find housing when you've got limited income is extremely difficult to find here. Decent housing. We try to make sure that the things that we would do would be affordable, attainable, and sustainable. Affordable in that they can afford to pay the rent each month. Attainable in that they don't have to put down all the deposits on the utilities, pay the prerequisite before you even, deposit. And then sustainable in that we would provide enough services in our wraparound program that they can make it do. Because often when we would get somebody into housing at Community of Hope, 2 months later they'd be out because we got them in, but that was all we could do. And so the program has 4 pillars. It has, the first one is finances, and our people all meet once a week at the beginning with a banker, And the bankers have been phenomenal. They have really done a good job. And then healthcare, to be sure that they do have the healthcare at St. Vincent's if they don't have regular healthcare. And then community involvement. One of the things we really want is we want them to build some sense of community. And so we do some kind of activity once a month with them. We did down at Cody Park, we did a cider and donuts and s'mores, and we did a barbecue one month. So we do try to build that during the city cleanup day. We want them to really encourage them to be out and do it, be part of it. We have truly encouraged them to register to vote because we think that's extremely important. We can't force them, but we can certainly encourage them. So those kinds of things, to be involved in the community in some way. And then the fourth thing is the actual house. But we don't start with the house. When I left Community of Hope, I thought, well, we ought to at least try to see if there's something we can do about this. So we invited about 30 people to come to a meeting and say, is there any possibility of doing anything with this? And about 20 people, everybody said, yes, it's a need. Excuse me, we need to do something about this. Then about 20 people said, okay, I'll work on it. And so we've been meeting every month, and they've really done a lot of different things. We did have one house that was donated to us. We rehabbed it. We learned a lot. We won't do that again. We did it ourselves. It probably cost us twice as much as if we would have just hired somebody, and it took forever to get done. But it did get done, and it is rented, and it's great, but we don't do that now. The second one, we hired a person to come in and do it. St. Paul's Lutheran gave us 5 houses where they kept the ownership, but we do the management of it. And that has been really good. Now, we're not going to, some of them were already rented. We're not going to make somebody homeless to put a homeless person in. So there are 2 of them that are still not part of the program at all, but we still manage the house. The others are part of the program in some way, and those have gone very, very well, very well. One of those 5 houses is one that we're rehabbing now. It should be finished, we hope, by the end of December, because we have a family of 3 kids and a mom that are ready to move in probably, so we hope it will be finished by December 31st, but I think it will be. Independence Baptist Church just gave us another property that we now own and are managing, and that's a couple that really needs the wraparound services. They're doing okay, but they could be doing a lot better. One of the properties that St. Paul's gave us, it's a mom and 2 kids. She's doing phenomenal. It's really, we helped her over some bumps, and that's what they need. They just need that support to get over that, and then eventually they'll be, this woman's going to buy her own house someday, I'm sure.
That's
but
nice.
We'll stay with her until she can get to that stage. We had the land at 728 Potawatomi donated to us, which we hope to be able to build a duplex on. Most of these properties that we have are really properties for families, and there is such a need for individuals here to have housing. I get several calls every week from an individual who's desperate for housing, and we don't have anything. And so that's what we'd really like to address at this point. I think what we would really like to do is to build 2 duplexes, one at that 728 Potawatomi, and then probably purchase another piece of land to build a second duplex. That would get 4 houses that are available, or apartments or duplexes, available to individuals. Then the other thing we would really like to do is purchase, as I looked at these, I've been driving the city a lot looking at houses. So most of these houses I've seen that you showed. Some of the houses that are in pretty bad shape, we think we could really rehab to do something with them to improve the neighborhood. Like the one that we just got, one of the things, I was talking to the couple today, we want to do something to the front of the house because it's on a block that looks pretty good, but it's pretty shabby on the front. So we want to fix it up. I don't know how to do that, but the guy that works with us will tell us what we can do to make it look better. as well as fix some of the things probably inside. We do have plans for either purchasing and then rehabbing the houses that will make, again, more places available for people who are individuals. We do have bigger plans for 2024 in conjunction with the guidance center, the land right behind the guidance center. They're looking at, and so are we, and maybe St. Vincent's could all be down there, which would be wonderful because the services are all right there.
One-stop shopping, yeah.
So we'll see what happens with all of that. But that's going to take a whole lot of fundraising, so we're not going to do that right now. In January, we will become part of DePaul USA. Now, DePaul USA is a Vincentian national group that is working on homelessness. There are 10 sites in the country now, and we will join that group. And what that means is it makes it more sustainable for the future. Right now, Leavenworth Attainable Housing is too dependent on me. And I'm 80 years old. I'm not going to be around forever. So we got to do something here. So that's what DePaul USA will do. They'll take on all of the business aspects of it. They'll do payroll, they'll do the insurance, they'll do all of those kinds of things that we won't have to do. We still have total control of what happens here. No two sites are doing the same exact work, but we decide what needs to be done and how to make it happen here. So it stays still totally local, but they take over a lot of the things that will keep it very sustainable into the future, which we really do need. We're hoping that maybe you would consider using some of that ARPA money to let some of this happen. I, of course, think it happens immediately, but I know that we probably won't have 2 duplexes by March, but we will be started by March, I would hope, if we can get the funding to do that. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Sure. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Sister Vicki, thank you for laying this out tonight. Appreciate that and all the work you put into it here. Few questions I've got. I guess number one, since you do bring it up to Paul, when would we be able to speak with a representative from DePaul?
He could come almost any time.
Okay. I would
Yeah.
definitely, I want to
Yeah,
speak for my
good.
team, but would
Sure.
actually be-
No, that would be
If
good.
there's going to be a baton handoff or anything down
Yeah.
the road, and they're taking over more, I'd love to know what their outlook is and what their plans are and some teeth behind what they're saying they're
He
going to
would
do.
be happy to
So,
come anytime.
That'd be
and do
perfect.
that.
So right now, can you tell me, as far as you're mentioning, and you may have gone over it, so if I missed it, I'm sorry, but the rehabbing you're doing to some properties today, where's that funding specifically coming in?
We have written
from
several
today?
grants.
Okay, okay.
And that's what, we have probably about 120 or 150,000 maybe that we've raised through
Okay.
that. And that has paid for, well, we've raised more than that. But we spent some of it, so
Oh, sure.
150 is what we have left. But it's mostly through grants that and individual donors.
Okay, and is that the same for also like you talk about the 2 duplexes, for example. So I'm thinking of ongoing maintenance costs, and where is
Right.
that going to come
Right.
from? So.
And that's one of the things that DePaul USA will help with.
That's what I was
Because they've
wondering
got a
about.
much broader span of people they can raise money from in
Mm-hmm.
terms of foundations. It's pretty limited. Kansas is not the great foundation structure of the world, and so it's really hard to get, and unfortunately, Kansas City foundations will not give in Leavenworth now. And so it's really hard to raise foundational money, which we're going to need to really do some of this, and DePaul will really help with that.
What changed you said they're not giving anymore. Do you know what changed?
I don't know. They just made a decision. When I first came up here, because I worked in Kansas City for years, I just figured when we were building 311 Kiowa, heck, anybody could raise $600,000, come on. And then, because I thought we'd get 2/3 of it from Kansas City foundations. And then I started making calls, and they say we no longer give, except in Kansas City. And even though Mark considers us part of the region,
Yeah.
the foundations do not. And so they just don't give here, so.
No, I appreciate
It's
that.
more of a challenge than I thought it would be.
Oh, sure. Well, can you tell me the parameters of the program, individuals that will qualify for this, type of housing? I've heard you mention that a couple times, I think even in the past. If at some point you could provide maybe a framework for what that structure looks like, so we could understand about that a little bit more. Mhm.
Okay. Basically, what we do is people who are homeless or at verge of being homeless, which means they've got very limited income and are struggling to make things meet. We haven't defined it as, real strictly in terms of it's got to be exactly this much money, because each situation is different. Sure. And so we deal with each one individually.
Okay, because this kind of goes along with what you've talked about some in the past of, hey, individuals that may qualify or want to get on track to.
Yeah, exactly.
From a, helping themselves out more. And, I know there was a few ideas you thrown out there in the past, so I didn't know how much that was contained into these
Yeah.
parameters, so.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, those are, and I'll be quiet here. But,
Good questions.
Good
though.
questions, yeah.
definitely love to talk to DePaul, I think,
Yeah.
before we make any decision,
Yeah,
down
for
the
sure.
road, and
Yeah.
just get their insight and
Sure.
what they have done, what their thoughts are, and what they specifically will do here in Leavenworth,
Sure.
so.
But yeah, Sister Vicky, I applaud you and your team for all the great work. And yeah, we definitely need this, for families and, individuals. So, I'm excited to listen to DePaul and, go from there. But so far, you've done great work.
Thank you.
It's about caring and giving people hope so
Yeah.
they can start fresh.
And change their lives.
That's right, right. And then they can be a productive
Yeah,
citizen in the
exactly.
community.
That's why the community part is so
and help
important.
somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Sister, how big is your staff now? I know you've got, most of them are,
Everybody here.
There's a lot of
I was gonna say, I know it's more than just you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But,
got a
but
team.
I know you do a great
There are
amount of the work.
There are 5 of us that work and meet regularly, but our board is pretty active. It's an advisory board. And there are about 20 people on it, and they're people who are willing to step up and be part of things.
Okay, and of the 5, those are all volunteers?
Yeah. Now, when DePaul takes over, they will pay the director and at this point, I will be the director, but our community is going to give the money back to Leavenworth Attainable Housing. But they will be paying that, so it's in the budget. And then they will also hire a case manager, because we're not only volunteers, we're not truly trained in social work. And so we need somebody who has that background. And so those 2, they'll hire right away.
That's awesome. Okay.
Well, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you have done for this community and what you continue to do for this community.
I'm very lucky to be in this community.
Yes, ma'am,
It's a
and
great
thank you
community.
to everyone that is part of this effort, this initiative. Like I said, you definitely have my support. I definitely understand the need
Yeah.
for this program.
You do.
And whatever we can do to help support you, like I said, we're all on the same page with this. So
Okay,
thank you.
very good. I will get a hold of Chuck, and then when's a good time for him to
I'll
talk?
reach out and
Okay.
work with me, and
Right.
we'll get it set up.
Perfect, perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Merry
Sister.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You
Merry
too.
Christmas to you guys, yeah. Okay, great. Great presentation. Okay, next up, Police Department towing ordinance and policy.
We have Police Chief Pat Kitchens and Deputy Chief Major Nicodemus.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor, Commission, I invited our deputy chief to come with me tonight for a couple reasons, one of which the original discussion with Mr. McGowan, I asked Major Nicodemus to do the review of all of that, so he had the discussions with Mr. McGowan. So if there's specific questions about the incident, he can help with that. And then Major Nicodemus also, in parts of his career, served in the traffic unit as a traffic supervisor and would have a great deal of intimate knowledge about towing and tow stuff that I would not have. So he's here to help us sort through all this. So, good evening. We're here to talk about towing, the policy and the ordinances that we have that govern that. If you might recall, a gentleman came to the commission meeting recently, a couple months ago, and expressed a concern about an incident. There was a traffic accident and some charges that his family received as a result of that. And so he had expressed some concern about that practice. And so we took that information, we went back and we did just a thorough top to bottom review of everything. And so I'll just kind of share some of that information with you to get a sense of how we deal with towing and the issue and the policies, okay? And so let's start with this. That particular incident we reviewed, I handled it with a letter to all of the tow companies. I included that in the policy report for you to review. So that matter was resolved that way with some clarification about whatever communication was done at the time. To just sort of broadly talk about towing, the police department gets involved in towing in generally three categories. So one of which is traffic accidents. We typically handle about 500 traffic accidents every year. Somewhere about half of those accidents result in either one or both of the vehicles being disabled because of damage associated with the accident and need to be towed. The other would be some sort of mechanical failure. You're driving down the street and your transmission goes out or something like that. It's in the roadway. It can't be moved, so we would facilitate towing with our system. And then finally, enforcement action. If the Leavenworth Police Department, for example, makes an arrest on a DUI and the vehicle is in the roadway, we would have that vehicle towed. If there was a parking issue or something like that where it's illegally parked and the person doesn't remedy it, we would have that vehicle removed. So those are generally the 3 times that we would be involved in towing a vehicle. It's important to understand that we do not impound the vehicle and hold it. That is, the tow company is responsible. In essence, what we do is facilitate the tow company getting into a relationship with the owner of the vehicle. That's generally what it is on the traffic accidents and the mechanical failure. For obvious reasons, on any sort of enforcement action, yes, we do have it removed, but it's not held and, kept for any period of time, okay? One of the things that the gentleman talked about is a contract. We are not in a contractual relationship with any of the tow companies. It is simply a list of companies that are available that we use to come and have a vehicle removed. The most important thing for us is public safety. That's the reason why we have the vehicle removed, because there's some sort of traffic impediment associated with it most of the time. If a person is involved in a traffic accident at 4th and Limit and the cars are disabled, that's a very busy intersection. We go there, we conduct the investigation in whatever capacity it is. It's a traffic accident, someone might get a citation, we make sure things like insurance and registration are taken care of. And then the next most important thing is getting the roadway back open to the general public so traffic is not impeded in too many instances. And so that is essentially how we do that. The structure that we have in place is what's called a rotating tow list. I provided the list of companies that participate. So from Sunday to Sunday at midnight, they are designated what we call the wrecker of the week. And so, for example, if we respond to a traffic accident, the first thing that we do, we talk to the owner of the vehicle. Do you have a preference for a particular company that you want to use? For example, some insurance companies want them to use this company or what. If they don't, and they're oftentimes a little bit confused and disoriented or something like that, and so they don't really know, and so we'll simply facilitate. We'll call that company that's that week, and they come out. In terms of the business that they get, it is either 1 or 10 or 25, just depends on how much we need it. If someone doesn't have a preference, but they need the car towed, we have them come out and they respond. There's an obligation that they have to respond quicker and make us the priority for those reasons I talked about in terms of public safety, making sure the roadway is cleared as soon as we can. To participate in the tow structure, they are required to sign a set of rules. I included the rules in the policy that you see. That way we can have a little bit of leverage over them if they're not behaving themselves as effectively as they should be. We probably tow 250, 300 cars a year. It's important to understand we don't hold it, that's the tow company. The tow companies are governed by state statute. They are required to follow certain procedures. If someone shows up to get their car, if they have proof of ownership, they're required to release it to them. They're required to pay whatever the tow bill is and whatever storage issues that take place as a result of however long it takes. But it is essentially a business relationship between the owner of the car and the tow company. And then we rotate to sort of share and make sure that, everybody gets an opportunity to participate.
Chief?
Yes, sir.
The owner of the car, though, is told what the charges will be before it gets towed away, right?
Well, I don't think it's exactly that it's more of an art than it is a science. Okay, obviously they know that there's going to be a tow bill associated with it. But it'd be very difficult to tell them, other than there would be storage fees, because it depends on when they come and get it. It's generally a daily fee assigned. So if the person waits a week then it's gonna be more than that. But that's a fair point. As we've been reviewing that we talked about is including that, making sure that the people understand. I mean, I think most people understand naturally there's a fee associated with towing. It's the tow bill storage issue that we probably need to work and clean that up a little bit and make that a little bit more formal in terms of the process. That's one of the things we talked about as we were reviewing it. And so the final conclusion, anytime we have an incident like this, what we like to do is, again, do a thorough review from top to bottom. We had our city attorney, Mr. Waters, take a look at the existing stuff that we have. Right now, the authority that law enforcement officers have to tow a vehicle is derived from state statute. He felt like it might be a little bit better if we shored that up and do a local ordinance to add some of the things like the rotating tow list, put it in the ordinance. We put a proposed ordinance together, he did, put it together for us to look at, and we're still working our way through that. So that's the basis of the way to start the conversation. Be glad to visit with you about that. Again, Major Nicodemus was directly involved in that particular incident with the gentleman, and so we'll open it up for discussion or questions.
Yeah, I appreciate the letter you sent out right away. I mean, this is not an acceptable practice. I really appreciate that.
Makes it clear.
Okay.
For those that are gonna be in that rotating list, is there any way that they can inform you how much it's gonna be? And so, when that traffic accident happened, at least they'll have an idea.
No, that's a very difficult proposition. So we've been talking to, Major Nicodemus has been talking to the tow companies. I mean, we have a lot of knowledge and experience, okay? The tow bills really are dependent on a series of variabilities, right? If I deal with somebody all of the time, they might charge me a little bit less.
Yeah.
It depends on whether you have insurance or
Insurance
not,
covers
as to
a lot,
whether or
right?
not the bill is this or
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It can depend on what kind of insurance that you have. Do you have liability insurance only? Do you have full comprehensive coverage in terms of the kind of insurance that you would have? There are also other variables associated. The tow company is required to clean up the accident scene. Okay, so they'll tow off the car if there's debris or oil or radiator fluid or something like that. We've had instances where the two that are off the top of my head, last year or late last year, we had an incident where a tractor trailer was driving down 20th Street, and a giant tree in high winds fell over. And so them having to spend time cutting the tree out first and then towing the semi-truck can affect how much it's gonna be. We've had the terrible fatality accident on Tonganoxie Road, if you might remember that. That was a truck that was in a 25-foot ravine. They had to have 4 or 5 people come out with chainsaws and cut down limbs. It took 3 or 4 tow trucks, and they were there all day. So
That's what you're saying.
it's very difficult at the time,
Each case is different.
unless it's a relatively standard tow where it's an accident, it's disabled, they pick it up and they take it, that kind of thing.
And to your guys' point, I mean, Mr. McGowan, when he was talking about it earlier in the year, it was more of there was excessive charges related to, I mean, after it left the site and everything. So I think your language in here, to your point, Mr. Kramer, I think it cleans it up a lot. Talk about the fee schedule in here, if a tow company is found to be in excess of a fee schedule, that could be talked about. So obviously, I don't know where you guys are with all your ordinance yet and modifying it, but, folks want to see itemized charges and want to understand and make sure they're not going to be raked over the coals, obviously, on that stuff. So as long as we can hold their feet to the fire a little bit so they know, hey, we're watching and it can't be abused, I think that's the main point.
So a couple of things about that. We've been in business with most of them for quite a long time. And any time there's been what I would describe as a complaint where they've called and said, hey, they've generally been pretty good to work with. I mean, they're a business and they're obviously, that's what they do. And so, in terms of that, they've been very good to work with. The leverage that we have, Commissioner Martin, is very simple. If you do not behave yourself consistently, I will take you off of the list. And I have done that to one company, because they were in violation of the rule. I don't know if you read all the rules, but there's a rule that says you can't wait around the corner for a trapfic accident. And
That's what was going through my head. Yeah.
If you do that, that's a no-no. And the other part of it is, the competition is pretty fierce, and so they regulate themselves quite a bit. If one company feels like the other company is cheating or not in compliance, they'll call and say, hey, I think the last one I got, one company called to say the other one is not registered with KDOT as part of the insurance and all of that sort of thing. And so,
So they watch each other.
right, they do.
They'll
They
tell on
regulate
each
themselves
other.
quite closely. And so, that's the leverage that we have, is that if you don't behave yourself and participate, I suppose if we conclude that they're overcharging or sort of not treating people fairly with charges, that would be a discussion that we would have. But Mr. McGowan was right. I think what he said was, that's an important point. We don't get in the middle of the business between those two.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Our function is principally
Safety.
about public safety. Getting the accident investigated, ensuring that there wasn't some sort of criminal issue or something like that with impairment or whatever, car stolen, something like that, and then getting the roadway back open. That's the principal focus that we have. And so, again, Mr. Waters' recommendation was that we put this ordinance together and put some language in there. We're gonna still work through that. That was sort of the point, was to come visit you tonight, kind of get a sense from you if that's what you wanted us to do, just to keep working towards that, and we can do that. In terms of the fee schedule thing, it's just very difficult to regulate.
Yeah.
In terms of an ordinance, so.
Sure,
'Cause
sure.
every
Well,
case
Yeah.
is so different.
and this piece in here that talks about, like you were saying, Mr. Kramer, that, a notice shall be given to the driver if they're there, that there's gonna be any extra charges or anything like that. I mean, I think that's kind of a crapshoot, whether maybe 50-50 if the driver will be there or not, I guess, depending on the situation or the owner of the car. But, yeah, I mean, I think that helps out a lot too, so.
Yeah, and for anybody listening or watching, what Commissioner Martin's referring to is, we did in the new ordinance, there is a new provision in there under fees and charges that requires that the wrecker give notice to a driver of the vehicle that fees will be charged for storage. And so that could be another piece of leverage that we have if that's violated, by that. First, it's a letter, and at some point could result in a tow company being removed. So we did add that
Yeah, that's
based on
perfect.
some commission feedback.
I
Chief?
think that's great.
Yes, sir.
On section, well, in the actual mock-up you got here already, right? Section 44-219, B, 3, and possibly 4, says that the tow company has to have a secure storage facility in the city.
Right.
Two of the folks that are on the list are in Lansing and Platte City.
That's right, but
Do
they
they
are-
have,
They have local tow lots.
they do have lots here?
That is a
Okay.
requirement.
Yeah.
And that is born out of the fact that we didn't want them, they can be from generally wherever they want to, but we didn't want a tow company to be based out of Kansas City, for example.
Yep.
Respond up here and then tow the car to Kansas City and make our Leavenworth residents drive there to get it. So they can participate and be based, but they still have to have a lot here locally that they can get. Some of the insurance companies work with them, but that was part of the provision that they're required to do, and both of them do, that are
Good,
from out of town.
good.
Yeah, because you'd probably get in, I mean, even towing it to another state, even though it's just,
Right.
you might
That
have a
becomes,
problem with
yeah,
insurance.
that can become problematic.
Yeah,
Just trying to get it back.
yeah.
Another question, on, there's an accident or for whatever reason, and a tow company is called, and the owner of the car says, no, I don't want you to tow it to your tow lot. I want you to take it over to Max, Max Car and Driver Auto
To my
Assist.
house.
Right.
Right? Now, the tow driver then is required to take it over there?
So that was sort of what the heart of the argument was.
I think that's what it was
That-
with Mac.
What I will describe as a rogue tow truck driver, I think. He was either ill-informed or that was incorrect. There is no rule that we have that says Commissioner Hingula wants his car towed to his house because he's a mechanic and he can work and fix on Saturday, or to Zach Ford, or
Yeah.
to anything like that. They can have it towed wherever they want to.
Yeah.
Even though they're the wrecker of the week, they can still, it's between them to do it.
Right.
They can tow it wherever they want. We don't have a rule that says that. And very often they do. There was just again, I think an ill-informed tow truck driver was what was principally the problem in that particular incident.
Well, I appreciate that you all took action after hearing the complaint and got it all addressed, and so, thank you.
No, thank you so
So
much.
just so
yeah.
I'm clear, so we'll keep working probably right after the first of the year. We'll come back maybe with an ordinance for first consideration after we take a look at it and make sure everything's included in that. Is that sufficient?
Yep, that's great.
That's great.
Okay,
That's great.
all right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Merry
Yes, ma'am.
Christmas.
Or just Nicodemus.
Okay.
Uh,
Solid waste operations discussion, bulky item pickup.
Before I start,
Right.
you
I know,
all are
that's
free to go.
great.
You do not need to hang around. Yeah, no, not you, you must say, but
You guys-
the attaining housing, yes, no. Enjoy your
You're not
evening.
interested in trash? Great big pieces of trash?
They're too polite to get up.
Oh, yeah, I should have said something. It's like, hey, you can go.
Give them just 1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, look at-
Okay, we'll get
Okay.
started. Madam Mayor and Commission, this is the ongoing discussion related to the solid waste operations discussion, tonight focusing on bulky item pickup at the September 6th City Commission study session. The commission did provide a consensus on a process related to modification of the solid waste collection system to go forward with a hybrid polycart opt-out method. So you see that as number one collection approach, which we've done. So tonight, the item up for discussion is bulky item pickup, hitting on frequency and new regulations. And then we'll finish up with enforcement approach, which we've talked about a little bit here in the next couple weeks, and then finally hit on trash bags. So I did want to mention that on the hybrid polycarts, we're not stopping at each section, we're continuing on. So we've already put out to bid the modifications to the trucks to pick up the polycarts. And so
Okay.
we're moving forward at the direction of the commission, we're not just doing it in a segmented fashion. So I'm going to walk through these and give you the staff comment and the direction based on the Solid Waste Task Force Committee and sort of get a consensus as we move through, with the end goal being to bring back a solid waste or bulky item policy that encapsulates all of this, that we can start sharing with the commission, knowing full well that 6 months into it, we're going to do a review, and if things need to change, they can change. So the first item I want to bring up is what is and what will be permitted with regular pickup in a new policy. So the first one is unlimited bagged refuse and yard waste. And this is consistent with current practice and the Solid Waste Task Force recommendation. So the consensus would be to continue with the unlimited bagged refuse and yard waste. Next item is no loose items except tied bundles of sticks, no more than the 5 foot in length and no more than 60 pounds. This is a new process as recommended by the Solid Waste Task Force. Currently, loose items are permitted. Bundles of sticks, but also carpet, cardboard, tires are allowed to be loose. If staff can pick it up, basically the practice is to collect the weekly residential collection. Solid Waste Task Force recommended that loose items, except for bundles of sticks and tires measuring the size and numbers currently in the city code, be prohibited. And so the provision on that is residents could use one cardboard box for sharp objects not to exceed 1.5 cubic feet. And mark sharp objects, and then if rain's expected, don't place by the curb, save for the next week, or call the service center. So that would be a discussion item we'd want to get clarification on, is that we are moving away from loose items. That beyond the bagged waste, and these items can be put inside the polycart, they can be put in the box, but that going forward, these loose items would be prohibited under the bulky item pickup section. So I'll open that for discussion.
So the loose items, well, just like even the bulky carpet and everything, or I mean, the carpet would be under more of the
So we'll get to that when we talk about
large trash.
schedule-based pickups
Yeah.
and other ways to disturb that, but under normal weekly trash service, there would be no
No.
more loose items.
And
Okay,
I think this is gonna be the biggest headache item for everybody in the city, but I think it's gonna be the biggest improvement we can make right there, so.
I do too, but on the sticks and branches, is this different right here? Because I think we tie them up now,
That's what
don't
it
we?
is now.
No, you
Yeah.
could still do the bundles of sticks. No,
Okay.
no items except the bundles of sticks.
Bundles,
And the
okay.
tires.
people are very good at that. They
They
know
are,
the rules
yeah.
and they bundle them well.
Yeah,
So it'd
okay.
be no loose items other than the bundles of sticks and then, of course, the cardboard box.
Oh, I like it.
I find that as far as bundles of sticks go, if the residents don't do a really good job of tying them up and all this stuff, those guys are really good. If they can pick it up and get it into the truck, they go get it. And
Yeah, we
they throw it
usually
into the
err
truck.
on the side of picking everything
Yeah,
up.
they do.
And I like the sharp objects, the box, for safety purposes,
So prohibited items would remain as currently outlined. That's all the household hazardous waste, sand, bricks, concrete items over 60 pounds, and that's consistent with current practice and the solid waste task force recommendation. So then we go to, we're prohibiting those. What are some provisions for the remaining large items? The first one is a schedule-based pickup. Residents would need to coordinate with the city, solid waste department for limited item furniture, mattress, appliance pickup that we would use the grapple and box truck. And right now, we're looking at once a month for each address. We would likely do those on Fridays. And so that is a new process, was recommended by the Solid Waste Task Force. And then what we do is take that recommendation in the discussion tonight, and I ask Brian, is this something that we can do with the staff, the equipment, and the time that we have? And he assures me it is. So that's where we would go with remaining large item pickup, is a schedule-based pickup that we would do on Fridays, which is not a normal trash day, with our existing staff.
So you're saying once a month? I mean, what if it,
Each house is once a month, or it can be done any Friday. You know, I
Yeah,
call on the
when-
14th, and you're gonna do it the
so
coming
is it every
Friday.
Friday or is it
So-
once a month per house?
Yes,
What-
once a month per house. So every Friday we would do this.
Oh,
but
okay.
But you wouldn't have to wait till the first Friday or the second Friday or the
Okay.
fourth Friday. You could call in and say, hey, Friday, and depending on when you called, so.
Okay,
At some point, if the demand wasn't that high, maybe we could expand that a little bit, but we just don't quite know with the new program how often that would be.
okay.
Is there any way we could possibly do a QR code or something in our quarterly that goes out to residents, just to kind of keep that, get the schedule out there front and center? Hey, if you need it, boom, boom, boom. I don't know, just.
Yeah.
I think very much so. I mean, the big component of this is education. And so anything we can do with the newsletter or things like that,
Yeah.
we'll work on.
Cool, perfect.
And then they just, they would just call or whatever to schedule a pickup. on
We
that
also
Friday.
want to, and the task force really hit this, and we've been talking about it, we also want to push people to the first free Saturdays. It's a free service that the city offers every single Saturday in town for unlimited drop-off. So these would be the case that if you have some odds and ends, we would hope you would use first free Saturdays. But if you have an oven or something like that that you just simply can't deal with, and we can do that with a grapple truck once a month. And I think I put in here the task force thought that was reasonable based on a normal household in the city.
Yeah.
You said it was every Saturday?
So the first Saturday of
First
each month,
Saturday, right.
it's
First Saturday each month is
unlimited
free-
drop off at the
first free
service
Saturday.
center.
Unlimited first
Yeah.
Saturday, okay, not
Yep.
unlimited Saturdays, yeah.
Yeah, at the service center.
Does that get used pretty regularly?
It does. I use it,
Okay.
a couple times a year, and it's usually pretty
Yeah,
crowded.
handy for me.
Yeah, it's a lot. So then the next one is what we call large amounts, or more commonly whole home refuse. Recommended large amounts of refuse, whole home, utilize first free Saturdays, or rent a dumpster, dispose of property left by vacating renters. Cities should maintain or could maintain a list of private contractors who at the property owner's expense can remove this material.
Right.
The task force had a note on this. They felt the majority of the people disposing of large amounts of whole house refuse were not the actual occupant of the house, but landlords, and proper disposal and payment for disposal by the landlord is a cost of doing business and should not be borne by the residents of the city. So we would recommend that. We would maintain a list of contractors, and that would be something that somebody could contract with on a private basis.
You
and
just
that
make the
city
whole
wouldn't
list
pick that up.
available to anybody who asks.
That's right.
And
Then
just
they
get
can pick
them-
out whoever they want.
Yeah, just get them educated and say, hey, this is from now on, here's the list of contractors, or, that can come with the dumpsters or whatever to help dispose.
And if the
And-
question is, what happens if they do this, that will be in the enforcement discussion that we do next.
Okay, if you
What are
don't,
the penalties that
Sure.
we
then-
that the commission ultimately wants to determine? But the consensus tonight would be, do we want to do away with allowing those whole home disposals? That the
Yeah.
city would not pick
Yes,
them up?
I mean,
I think so.
yes,
And the folks wouldn't be limited to who's on that list. Hey, if you wanna go get somebody else, from down in Kansas City, fine.
Yeah.
As long as they do the job well.
Yeah.
right.
Right?
It just it's convenience, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
they
I
might
mean,
know
we'll give them
somebody
something that,
else.
they've
That's
got a
fine.
whole list. But if somebody's got, Cousin Joe has a place, and he'll come and get it. Fine, tell Cousin Joe to come and get it.
And is there a time limit? I mean, like they say, okay, I called somebody and to dispose of that. Do we have that? Like, okay,
So
we're
we
gonna
would,
give you
I would
a
speak
couple
with Brian,
days.
Brian could chime in. So we have a 24-hour rule now where you can't have your trash out before 24 hours before pickup. So we would
Right.
maintain that is you can't say somebody's coming in 2 weeks, then don't put it out until they're 24 hours out.
Okay, okay.
24 hours
That's-
would be the
no,
expectation.
That's good, because, you know, it's,
Yeah.
right now, you know, it sits out there for days on certain,
Yeah,
a
some,
lot.
some places. Yeah.
So that just needs to be reiterated.
So one other thing, Mr. Kramer, I see your asterisk down there on page 22, the option to consider a city-run dumpster rental service.
So this is not uncommon. Some cities do this. So you could start with 3 dumpsters and you could rent them. And so you'd rent them to a homeowner and then the city would pick them up. There would be a fee associated with that. This is not a free service because there is cost involved. But at that point, the reason we put this in here, one is it is usually popular in cities that do it and it gets used and it's done fairly regularly. But also there's been concerns from the public about dumping, about illegal dumping. If we're just essentially trying to cover costs and not trying to make a profit, and we offer, what did we include, 30-yard dumpsters at a reasonable cost, maybe that would encourage proper disposal of large bulky item. There's a capital cost.
Well, there's a
Well,
capital
yeah.
cost, I
What's
mean,
the cost?
and so here's Mr. Hengel, here's my thought, and again, I'm just, as you mentioned this, my head's spinning. So what percentage today is, all of our properties that are actual rental properties today?
About 52%.
52%, okay,
Second
okay.
highest in the state.
So we have a lot of potential turnover, new residents, different things like that. Obviously, having a dumpster service would, you know, they're gonna be used a lot potentially if they're gonna be required to now. We don't know what that number's gonna be. One of my thoughts are, okay, we have some ARPA money. What if we could kick off something like that? What if we are able to take the funds that come in to lower our operating budget for, you know, the year, feed into that? Because we know it's gonna be used. We don't know what the numbers are just yet. That's just where I was going with that. Maybe we could reduce some of our overhead operating costs if we would take care of that, and plus anything else, if we got extra funds coming in that way. Again, it just, right now, I mean, we've got the blight out there on the streets. If this
Yeah.
is a way to actually, I don't mean it like to come across the wrong way, or turn it into a profit center. No, I'm talking about use extra funds that come in, not to just cover that, but also, you know, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what the you know,
So we'd take
money
some
would look
ARPA
like.
money to buy some dumpsters. and
to
then-
maybe
and
potentially,
rent them.
yeah,
And
just
buy
a
a
thought,
truck.
to start the process that we could start with the city, and if it's being used a lot, and if the money coming back in from the service well exceeds what it costs to operate, that could actually start lowering our operating costs as a city.
And my thing would be, would it take an extra employee to do that?
We don't think so.
Or-
If we kept it at about 3, you know, if we got to 10 of them, then you're looking at almost an operation.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you did 3, and we did them on Fridays, and they're all not gonna be one day things, they're gonna be a week. So somebody gets it on a week, and they'll be staggered, and they'll be relatively easy to manage. Then we thought, the other thing is it's reliable. You know, the contractors that you put on there, when can they come? It's, you know, it's done by the city, so you know that it's gonna be done and done well.
Oh, so the theory would be, so they'd call the city and we'd drop off the dumpster, they would fill it, and then we'd come, back the next day?
We would give them, we would say,
Say-
hey, you
Give them a
have
date.
72 hours, and then we pick it up whether you're done or not,
No.
because, you know, you can't just keep it
Because
in your
that's,
driveway
you know,
for
and
however
there's a
long.
fee, say, okay, for
Right, a
3
reasonable
days,
amount of
yeah.
time.
Right,
Okay.
and I don't know what the numbers are. You said we might be able to do it with the staff we have today. Is that-
If we kept it to, yeah, sorry,
Right,
Ryan.
with a limited number of dumpsters.
Sure, sure.
3.
A lot of
About
people, I
3.
mean, when they're trying to clean out a house, I mean, it takes them a week. And so
Yeah.
typically, whether it's 72 hours or whether it's a week, Friday to Friday, I give them that opportunity. We charge a deposit upfront before we deliver.
Sure.
Then we charge for, if it's a week, we charge. If it's 2 weeks, we charge more. And then we charge for the cost of actually dumping it. We have to take that to the landfill.
And we wouldn't know what it would cost actually to run the program just yet, but let's
Correct.
say it was $30,000, you know, for us to actually run that. I mean, as long as we're clearing that,
Right.
I mean, if not, it's self-sustaining if we make that, but if we exceed that quite a bit, and again, being in a little bit of a different type of scenario, because we're here in a high, you know, rental.
Right, second in the state.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could maybe potentially start putting money right back into our budget, to start lowering some other costs potentially. That's where I was going with
And,
that.
you know, it would make it, instead of giving them that list, which you still could, but just say, hey, this is what the city offers. We're making it easy for you. Yeah, there is a fee, but, we're making it more convenient,
And
so.
the thing is, with that percentage, and a lot of times these houses turn over at the same time. And so when we do 3, there may be more demand than that, so we still need to maintain that list.
Well, that's true, because
And
you,
then, but
I
we'll
could
see.
see the
mean,
demand being inconsistent, could come May, June, you're gonna
right.
get really busy, and sometimes in the January, February timeframe,
But you notice
you're
that
gonna
just
get real
driving
busy, but the
around.
rest, not so
Yeah.
much.
I'm just saying, we're in a different spot now because we could use ARPA funds for something like that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, we could start a program at no cost essentially. And you said, Mr. Kramer, the other cities that have implemented this see really good results a lot of times. Well,
Yeah, Lawrence has it.
Lawrence has it quite a bit. and
so I'd
actually went
imagine,
about
I'm
a
sure
month.
we'd see that here, yeah.
How much is that then for ARPA
what?
funds? Or
Well, we
just,
put a little bit into it, but we wanted to see the consensus. We're getting pretty good bids on some of the polycarts and some of the arms and stuff like that. So I think from the original set aside that the commission talked about, which was less than $1 million, we could probably accomplish this. But we'll get you better numbers.
I would definitely be interested to see what kind of numbers we could come up with the city-run dumpster rental service, just because I don't know what that number looks like. How often would that be used?
And again, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's
Sure.
done quite a
in
bit.
other cities
Yeah.
use
It's
it,
a
yeah.
service
What's
for
the average
residents.
cost for a dumpster now? Does anybody know?
Yeah, it was on here.
10,000.
10,000 apiece
Okay.
for a
They've actually
Certain
doubled in the
size.
I'm
last
talking
couple
about
of
to
years.
rent it, to rent it.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
rent.
something like that.
That's something we'd have to determine.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
We
we-
can look at other cities, what they're charging.
Okay.
Well, that, and then what are dumpsters from a contractor being charged, what is somebody being charged for that? Because if they can get it a whole lot cheaper out there, our demand is gonna be going down real fast.
I doubt
Well,
it.
Yeah,
we have to look at that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Well,
one of the
yeah,
things we have to look at
that,
when
but,
we
if
figure out the
we
fees.
Get these dumpsters, I mean, let's say hypothetically through the ARPA money, and then we're charging people a fee. Yeah, I guess you'd have to look at that, but we still may be ahead. I don't know. You'd have to look
No,
at
I
it.
think the math could actually work out depending on
Yeah.
what that volume is. Again, if it's a way that we could use this to lower some of, that's why I'm interested in it. If we could use this to maybe lower some of our other operating costs, if we can exceed that threshold on cost to maintain.
Well, you could
plus
only
fees.
lower refuse because it's an enterprise fund.
Well, that's what was going through my
Yeah.
head. It's like, hey, if
Yeah.
we could, this
Yeah.
could actually be a way we could start even lowering those fees for our residents.
Well, and even the city, I mean, going through, let's say with this program, it would be a lot nicer the city would look
Well, and I think some of the
nicer.
feedback is, how much are you taking away? You put the polycarts are good, but there's certain people, so, adding something back in, another option, first free Saturday. Now you're giving the community sort of a cafeteria option. We have first free Saturdays, we have once a month free pickup on Fridays, we have a dumpster
making it
service,
easier,
we have
yeah.
polycarts,
So
over
they
and
should
over.
be able to follow.
Right, yeah,
you
it's
know.
still unlimited bag and yard
Yeah.
yard waste, so that's
And
the
what
idea.
Now, the add on the dumpsters, is the people that'll be renting those aren't just the landlords that are cleaning out houses. It's property owners that just, they got a lot of buildup of stuff and they don't know what to do with. And so
Yeah.
they'll rent them for
They
a
just
week
would
and
throw it
they'll
away.
just,
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually, like in the city of Lawrence, it's just, I just need to clean up my place a little bit. So they
Sure.
rent those and then they throw their stuff in there, so.
When contractors that are doing renovations, whole home rehab, I'd rather see them doing it, putting it into a dumpster than digging a hole and burying it. That's usually
Yes.
with new construction though.
So would there be, I'll just ask our team here, would there be a consensus to look at what that program would look like?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
To look at it, yeah,
See the
figure
numbers,
out,
so you get some costs together, Mr. Faust, just to see what
That's-
that
No,
that's
I
one of
like
the
that a
biggies.
lot.
operational costs, so.
Figure out.
Just, to make it just convenient for
Pique
the
my interest,
citizen.
that's a good idea, you guys.
Include
so.
in the, you're gonna love this, include in that,
Uh-oh.
if we
Asterisks.
have that inconsistent, demand, if there are times when the demand is so low, And that becomes, it's consistently low during this month, and this month.
Peak pricing or discount pricing?
No, no.
We can have a sale?
Make them available to nearby cities and towns if they want to rent them. And pay a fee.
Then you're gonna need to hire staff.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, as a
I
backup
mean,
option.
If all you're doing is
never know.
driving it out there and picking it up again.
Let's get,
Hey,
the
quick
first part
question.
done
Yeah.
first.
How many
Yeah.
refuge- how many refuge workers do we have?
What are we at?
We're at 11.
Okay, so are we short-staffed or are we good?
Usually, are we good right now? We're fully set for
We're
now?
down to brush site operator, but we actually, the brush site's closed at the moment.
Okay.
So we've actually,
Full
last
staff?
year, we were down at one point, I think, to 4 plus Steve. And right now, we're pretty much running full crews, so.
Okay.
But in a normal situation, we'd have to put up all the capital for this out of our own, pockets basically, and like, okay, let's hope it does well. But now we're like, well, actually, it could be a no-cost option to jumpstart and see what it.
And if for some reason the dumpsters, we weren't we weren't using them, we have a recycle center out there.
Right.
We can, and for
Utilize.
Saturdays, we can reutilize those dumpsters
Yeah.
for other purposes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Good direction on that, and we have what we
that's
need. Just a couple, some loose ends. Contractor and construction refuse. Contractors working on a resident's home must arrange for haul and disposal of construction debris, including carpet, carpet pad removal, sheetrock, lumber, other construction materials. City will need to educate residents and contractors on this requirement. Recommend the city look into modifying contractor permits to address disposal of construction debris. And this is a new process recommended by the Solid Waste Task Force. They felt that some contractors may be charging residents for disposal of construction debris, but actually just placing it on the curb to have city staff collect. This would be addressed by the no loose items and the other, but we would do a education component with our contractors
Contractors, yeah.
through the permitting process and working with Public Works. But just formalizing that that is not allowed.
Okay.
So I wanted to get back into frequency of the item for pickup and charges for bulky item pickup. So we, again, I just wanted to formalize and see if anybody wanted to look at anything else. We did have one time per month for bulky item pickup for a mattress or an oven. But again, you can still utilize First Free Saturdays and, it's not once a quarter or once a year. So you can do an oven 1 month or a mattress and a box spring the next and stuff like that. So we would recommend just starting at once a month and kind of see how that goes.
Once a month per resident.
Per resident, yeah, for a single item or two
Okay.
mattresses or
Okay.
something like that. And then for all of this, consistent with the Solid Waste Task Force recommendation and commission direction throughout, that there are no fees associated with the bulky item pickup. There are no new fees, no new charges for poly cards, for anything, other than if we do go to this extra dumpster program. But I know there are certain cities that do charge for when the grapple truck comes out. My brother-in-law lives in Olathe, and they charge a fee and then a per quarter hour fee for that. But we would not at this time think that that's necessary. That we could do it if we limited it to once a month and we limited it to 1 or 2 items. That we could do that on Fridays, meet the demand, and not charge any new fees.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we have the consensus we need to put together a draft bulky item policy and then get some more information on the dumpster pickup program and bring some dollars back to you.
Yeah, sorry, it's like extra home.
No.
No, that's good.
Ryan likes these challenges.
I know. I do have a question. So what about trash bags, like for the beginning of next year? Is that like
So-
we decided a no, a
Yeah, we're
yes,
close
or-
on enforcement. The bulky item took a little while as we
Oh,
finished
sorry.
up
Yeah.
stormwater projects, and Brian's team was finishing up pavement management and getting some RFQs out for Fire Station 3. And so but the next one, the enforcement and the trash bags, we should have in January. So we'll have enough time to address those items before we need to.
Oh, if we're gonna do the trash.
Right,
bags.
yeah.
Okay.
Do
Okay.
one in spring.
People were just asking, and I said, well,
Yeah, we're getting there.
Really?
In the next,
we're gonna do one more time?
yeah,
or
we may be able
not,
to
or-
combine 3 and 4 at a study session in January, so we don't have to wait. And we'll continue moving forward with the polycart, per commission direction.
Okay.
Cool, great.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yes, exciting. Okay, looks like that's it at the study session. Mr. Kramer, did you have anything?
No, just, we've had a lot of ARPA discussion tonight. We'll bring back, I think Commissioner Bowder had asked, and some of the other commissioners, are where are we, with what we've committed?
Yeah.
What's kind of out there, how much funding do it look like we have left? It's a little bit hard because we have a certain amount allocated for the grant program.
Yeah.
So how much demand is there gonna be on there? We do have firm numbers, now on like the fire truck and some of the sewer repairs that are the big ticket items. And so, we'll do that probably January 3rd or January 17th at the latest. Bring that back with the numbers and where we are. So that's all I
Okay.
have.
$1.5 bouncing around my head.
I had about 2 to 2.5 left after
Okay.
what we've sort of, and we have Wilson Avenue, that request kind of hanging out there from,
good.
that we've heard a little bit about, so, circle back around pretty quick. So I think we're doing pretty good.
What you said that's left? How much you said that was left?
About between 2 and 2.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hengela?
Yeah, just, it came up yesterday, a friend of mine, he got cited for something about his RV. And he said, how was I supposed to know that the code had changed?
Or the time period?
Well, no, it was, he didn't know that there was any change to the code at all.
Okay.
And, he said, now, I know, they told me, well, it's, it's in the official newspaper. And he says to me, how many people go back there and read that stuff? Okay, he makes a point, not many people go back, I do
You
now.
Okay.
I didn't, 6 years ago, but I'm wondering, is there a way of getting another official outlet, an official way, in addition to the newspaper for publicizing city business like new ordinances and things like that?
So the letter, though, I do want to clarify, is not a citation in the traditional sense. There is no court date, fine, or fee. It's a notification.
Oh, yeah.
So you have time
Yeah.
to abate. So I will add that the commission has changed this probably 4 times in the last 8 years. Because we've had
no wonder
what's
he's
boating
confused.
season and not boating season. We extended that for campers and boats. So some of the confusion is because it has changed. And then it's, well, somebody says, I don't read the newsletter. Okay, well, it's on Facebook. Well, I don't have Facebook. Okay, well, then we put it on the website. Well, I don't look at your website. So then it's,
Yeah,
how do you reach every individual person?
sure.
The newsletter's the best one that we could do. But other than that, you're gonna miss some. I don't know what else to tell you on that.
No, my point was actually, the newspaper is
Yeah.
the official,
Boating season, John?
right?
Yeah.
That's the official newspaper of the city.
Right.
Is there a way we can have, like maybe putting it on the web somehow and declare that or appoint it or whatever you want to use,
Yeah.
as far as what verb you use, an official outlet. So that, you can tell people, hey, look, there are 2 official outlets, the Leavenworth Times and,
Well, the city page, right?
yeah.
The city.
And, just kind of something that you can tell people, that's the official word right there, and nobody can tell you otherwise.
Yeah, it'd be the city's development regulations is the official word on all of those. I don't know, I wouldn't know what else to tell you.
Now, listen,
And the
well, I mean,
notification,
right.
Yeah.
Or at the same time, if you did own an RV or boat or something, I would think, every city's different on what they do, for storage.
Yeah,
or
you
if
think
have
they're
a
gonna-
driveway. I don't know if, would
Yeah.
you think someone
Well-
would call and say, hey, you know what? I just moved here, or I have this, I'm gonna buy this RV, what's your regulations?
Yeah, to me, it's not just the matter of the RV, but, any changes to, like all of these that are gonna change.
Yeah.
This whole, the towing thing that the chief brought up earlier, right? They're gonna write a bit of code, city code, rewrite a bit of city code, and then we're gonna rewrite the trash stuff, things like that, how it becomes part of the education process.
It's really hard to keep up, we
Yeah.
You
we
know what?
update
You're
the
not
codes in
gonna
real time
reach
online.
everybody.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I
At all.
know.
I get what you're saying.
But-
But, yeah.
But Melissa, you gotta try to reach as many as we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many things that I love about this city, but, one particular for me is second chances. This is a city that provides second chances, and this is in reference to the free expungement that's going to be taking place starting on Monday from December the 12th through December the 16th at the Justice Center between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. For anybody who have a criminal record, you served your time, paid your debt to society, want to move forward with your life, take advantage of this opportunity. It helped save my life, change my life forever. It'll help assist you with housing as well as employment. Take advantage of this free opportunity.
Thank you. Great information.
Love the Christmas decorations the city's put up.
I
all
do
the Extra
too.
lights this year, and
Yeah.
so really appreciate that. I just wish everybody Merry Christmas this season.
Sure. No, I'm right there with you. I was commenting to Sarah in them, even in here in City Hall, how beautiful it looks. And, so no, I don't have anything else.
Yeah,
Just
that's
happy
a
holidays.
beautiful Christmas
Oh,
tree
it
out in
is,
the hall.
isn't it? And
way
if
it's
you go up the
decorated-
stairs, the garland that runs up the stairs to the planner's
I
office.
don't get up there very often.
Well, you can go look at the stairs. So no, have a great rest of the week and happy holidays. So that's all we have. Thank you.
Ouch.
This isn't this is the old one. My one that I have, I didn't bring in. That's softer.